Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over this Orioles and Rangers game one that just ended literally 30 seconds ago. This was an absolute thrilling game from the Orioles and the Rangers as well. It was a crazy game from both teams. Punches were being thrown on both sides. It was an absolute thriller of a game. By far the most thrilling and I guess as a whole entertaining Orioles game this season. I guess in terms of like a high stakes, extra inning battle. But the Orioles do find a way to win this game 10-6 in the 11th inning. It was an absolutely crazy game. You had to be there and watch it, but I'm going to do my best to break it down for you guys. Again, this was an absolutely insane game by both teams, or for both teams. The Orioles win this game 10-6. Some huge late home runs hit by Gunnar Henderson and Colton Cowser to give the Orioles a lead, and then that lead was then taken away by Adolis Garcia hitting a 3-run homer, and then styling and stunting all over us with his home run celebration. And then the Orioles in the 11th inning get some extra runs from Vasquez, from Laureano, and from Gunnar Henderson again. Gunnar Henderson had a huge game, especially in the late innings. Ramon Laureano had a 4-hit day. Trevor Rogers had a solid outing today. Not anything spectacular, but it was solid. He does continue to, have some very solid games for the Orioles, and he continues to pitch well now in the 4 starts that he's had since he's been called back up from AAA, or the 4 starts that he's had this season as a whole. We'll talk about, the game tomorrow and what our bullpen looks like for tomorrow, but I will say both bullpens are absolutely fried right now. The Orioles used 5 pitchers today. The Rangers used 5 pitchers today. And tomorrow the Rangers do have a big advantage with Jacob deGrom pitching. And if it's anything like last time, then we are in trouble because, he pitched, I think, 7 perfect innings last time against the Orioles. So Jacob deGrom on the mound tomorrow for the Rangers, and then tomorrow it is going to be Brandon Young on the mound for the Orioles. It was supposed to be Charlie Morton, but Charlie Morton he does have, I think, tendonitis in his thumb, which is not good at all. His start does get pushed back a few days, so I think it got pushed back to Friday. So tomorrow will be Brandon Young from AAA pitching for the Orioles tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be a crazy one. We'll see if they go out there and win tomorrow, but today was an absolutely thrilling game, and they walk out there with the win. But going over this Orioles and Rangers game, again, the Orioles win this game 10-6. The Orioles record now moves to 37-47 on the season, just 10 games below 500. Once again, they've escaped, the 12 and 13 range. They're back at the 10 games below 500, and they also start the series off with a win, and they go up 1-0 in this series. And all they got to do, and I've said this multiple times before, I even said this last week when we played the Rangers, all they got to do is win one of the next 2, and they'll win the series, and we can move on with that. But, again, the Orioles win this game 10-6. 10 games below 500 now for the Orioles, 37-47 on the season. But going over the offense in this game, as you can see, there was a lot of crazy names here on offense, and not all of them are completely accurate. But I will say, before we go into the offense, the Orioles' catching situation is in a bit of danger right now. And when I say a bit of danger, I mean a lot of danger right now. Going into this game, there was only 2 Orioles catchers on the roster, which is kind of normal, obviously, for a lot of teams. Obviously, going into the season was Adley and Gary, but with Adley being on IL right now and not coming back until after All-Star break, he's not playing right now. Michael Handley was the guy that we called up to be that backup catcher. He's on IL with a concussion, and now we have Chadwick Tromp and Gary Sanchez as our 2 catchers heading into this game. So Gary Sanchez was the DH in this game for the Orioles. He was not catching. It was Chadwick that was catching. In the first inning, Chadwick gets hurt in the hip area, and he exits the game. So all of a sudden, we lost our catcher, and our other catcher is our DH. So obviously in baseball, if you lose your DH, you have to replace them with a pitcher. And we don't have any other catchers on the roster, so Gary Sanchez had to catch. So we lost our DH. So all of a sudden, Trevor Rogers was our was batting in this game. He had 2 plate appearances in this game before we then put in Emmanuel Rivera, before we then put in Luis Vasquez in this game. So it was very crazy, some very crazy events. Both teams actually had a pitcher hit in this game, which I don't know when the last time that happened, but that obviously does not happen ever in baseball, where even if one pitcher, hits, like other than Shohei Ohtani, obviously, but when a pitcher hits in baseball, that's very rare. For it to happen for both teams in the same game, that's even more rare. So Jack Leiter for the Rangers hit, and then Trevor Rogers for the Orioles hit in this game. So it was very, very wacky game in general. So right now, as it sits right now, the night of June 30th, 2025, the Orioles currently only have 1 catcher on their main roster because I'm sure that the Chadwick Tromp injury is going to be something that he's going to have to go on IL for. Maybe not. Maybe it's a day-to-day thing and he'll be back in a couple of days, which is, best case scenario. But if Chadwick Tromp does go to IL, which I have a feeling that he is going to, then Gary Sanchez is your only hitter on the roster, and then the Orioles have a decision to make whether they call up Samuel Basallo, which, if you don't know, Samuel Basallo is a top 10 prospect in baseball. He's the number 1 catching prospect in all of baseball. One of the best prospects in all of baseball. He hits the ball extremely hard. He's a home run machine, and he's one of the best prospects in all of baseball. And you would think, Nathan, why would they not call him up with all of these injuries going on to Adley or whatever, and Michael Handley? Why would it not be a given that they would call up one of the the best catching prospect in baseball? Why would they not do that? Doesn't it seem obvious? And yes, it does seem a little bit obvious to call up, obviously, this amazing talent, because you have, so like the Orioles are in a position where if a catcher gets hurt, it's not that big of a deal because they have, the best catching prospect in baseball ready to go, but he's not ready to go. And the reason why he's not ready to go is because he is 20 years old. He is very, very young. He's doing extremely well in AAA, but he is still young. And again, a big part about prospects and knowing when to move them up is making sure not to rush them. Because if you do rush them, then they can lose their confidence. It kills their confidence early if they do bad, and then it kind of, stunts the rest of their growth throughout their career, and it could really mess them up. So knowing when to call up prospects is a really big part of baseball and a really big part of the scouting team and everything like that. Knowing when to call up guys and knowing when is the best time to do it. But as it stands right now, the Orioles honestly might be forced to call him up just because we have 3 catchers, potentially now 3 catchers on IL, which is ridiculous, which is absolutely insane how the Orioles have gotten so unlucky with that happening. Thankfully, Gary Sanchez has been excellent hitting the ball for the Orioles, so he's really gone out there and done his thing hitting the ball. Behind the plate, he has not he's not really been good at all behind the plate, and that's been the big downside with Gary. He is older. Hitting the ball, he's been great recently, or at least this month he's been great since he's come back from IL. But I feel like the Orioles might be forced to bring up Samuel Basallo. We'll see if he gets called up. We'll see if he becomes the Orioles' backup catcher behind, or just another catching option behind Gary Sanchez until one of the other guys come back. Or maybe if he does good, we'll keep him up here. We'll see. And while it will be very exciting to potentially see Samuel Basallo in the majors, because again, this is somebody that the Orioles value a lot. They value him from a, possible trade piece for a, potential superstar or star player, because he's worth that, because he's a top 10 prospect. You could get a lot for him. You could package him and someone else to trade for a potential, ace, So the Orioles are thinking about potentially, that route, or they're thinking that he's potentially the future of the catching position for the Orioles, whether or not they want to keep Adley or not, or maybe even make Samuel Basallo a first baseman, but then Kobe Mayo's a first baseman. So there's a lot of questions regarding Samuel Basallo, whether he's going to be a future long-term piece for the Orioles, or he's going to be a big trade piece in a potential trade for a superstar or a star player or pitcher in the future. Most likely a pitcher. So he is very important to the Orioles, so they don't want to mess anything up with that. In my opinion, at the end of the day, I think that they're going to sign or call up some bum catcher, and they're going to, end up playing for the Orioles just as a replacement until someone like Michael Handley or Chadwick Tromp comes back, because we're not going to see Adley for a few weeks. So one of those guys coming back is a lot more likely than Adley. But going over this offense in this game, the Orioles offense in this game put up 15 total hits. They were getting on base a lot in this game. 15 total hits, 3 total walks in this game for the Orioles. Jackson Holliday goes 1 for 5 with 2 runs scored. Ramon Laureano, Ramon Laureano with an excellent game today, has the most hits of any player in this game in general. Ramon Laureano was batting second in this game, and he goes 4 for 6 with 3 runs scored and a very clutch RBI late in the 11th inning. So Ramon Laureano, 4-hit day for him. He continues to shred the ball and hit the ball so well for the Orioles. He's sitting at a .287 average, which is actually the second highest average of any Orioles hitter this season behind Ryan O'Hearn. So Ramon Laureano continues to play amazing this season. Gunnar Henderson, honestly, player of the game on offense today. He goes 2 for 5 in this game with 2 runs scored, but he hits a big 2-run homer in the 10th inning, and he also has a 2-run double in the 11th inning. So 4 RBIs. All 4 of Gunnar Henderson's RBIs all came in the 10th and 11th innings. So definition of clutch right there for Gunnar Henderson. 4 RBIs in this game for him. Obviously a 2-run homer, a walk, 2 hits in this game. Shout out to Gunnar Henderson. He wasn't doing much until the 10th and 11th inning, but he came through in a big way like a superhero. Gunnar Henderson heroics coming through once again. As we know, Gunnar Henderson, this is the Gunnar that we know. This type of Gunnar Henderson play coming up late in the game, having a 2-run homer in the 10th, having a 2-run double in the 11th. This is what we know Gunnar Henderson as. This is why he's the superstar of this team. This is why he's the guy who everyone looks at with the Orioles and says, yeah, that guy is a superstar. You know, Gunnar Henderson obviously has had a down year, especially with the home runs compared to, other seasons, and also the Orioles are doing bad, so it's kind of, tarnishing his, performance. But Gunnar Henderson is still the Gunnar Henderson that we know and love, and it's so cool to see him go out here and have these big clutch hits and, RBIs being drove in by Gunnar. And then Gary Sanchez in this game, another incredible game today. Obviously, defensively, he made a very big mistake. The Orioles went up in this game 3-0, and then the Rangers tied it, or not tied it. They made it 3-2 after a Marcus Semien home run, and then it was 3-3 after the 7th inning because Gary Sanchez. There was a guy trying to steal second. The throw got past Gunnar. The guy went to go to third, and then there was a throw. There was an error on the throw home, so the guy stole second, and then rounded from second all the way home off of an error. Gary Sanchez dropped the ball at home plate, and that ended up tying the game for the Orioles, and it was an absolute disaster. It was an absolute disaster at the time. And then obviously the Orioles went up 6-3 in the 10th inning, and you thought that was the dagger, and then the Rangers got 2 guys on, and then Adolis Garcia hit an absolute nuke missile to left field and tied the game 6-6, and then the Orioles went out there and got 4 runs in the 11th inning to finally put the stamp on this game. Again, Gary Sanchez got the scoring started early with a 3-run bases clearing double. So shout out to Gary again. He's been hitting the ball very well. Obviously, defensively, he's not been great, but he's been hitting the ball well and getting a ton of RBIs. Ramon Urias in this game goes 1 for 5. Colton Cowser goes 1 for 6 with a solo homer that he had in the 10th inning, along with the Gunnar Henderson home run. Kobe Mayo goes 1 for 3. Ryan O'Hearn, pinch hitter, goes 1 for 2 with a run scored. Cedric Mullins goes 1 for 5. Chadwick Tromp goes 0 for 1, obviously to get taken out the game. And then Trevor Rogers and all those guys did not get a hit. But then Luis Vazquez in the 11th inning he's a pinch hitter. In the 11th inning, Luis Vazquez, like our last hitting option, goes 1 for 1 with a RBI. He got the scoring started again in the 11th inning. Made the Orioles go up 7-6, and then the scoring just kept going as the Orioles put up 4 runs in the 11th inning and obviously won this game 10-6. So again, it was a huge win. I think one thing that I really take from this game is that the Orioles just did not give up. They went up 3-0 early. Obviously, then the game was 3-2. Then it was tied 3-3 off of a horrible error mistake. And then the Orioles went up 6-3, and then it was tied 6-6. And then the Orioles went up 10-6, and then they ended up winning. So the fight that this team had in the 10th and 11th innings to put up 7 runs in 2 innings in extras was really cool to see. It was really cool to see the fight in this team. It was cool to see how they're producing runs well. Obviously, in this game, they went 6 for 17 with runners in scoring position, which is a very good mark. And again, they did great this game. the bases clearing double by Gary Sanchez, the Gunnar Henderson 2-run bomb, the Gunnar Henderson 2-run double, the Colton Cowser solo home run, like all this stuff. It's so cool to see the Orioles offense really move at a good pace right now, and they're really finding their identity, and recently they just haven't been giving up. Like, they've been fighting because they understand how important this next month of baseball is going to be for them. They really have a month left until they really have to decide how they want to operate moving forward throughout the season, and they understand how important these games are, last series, this series, moving forward, and the rest of, the month of July up until the trade deadline on July 31st. So they understand how important these games are, and it's cool to see them fight, and it's cool to see them fight the way that they have been. And again, putting up 10 runs is great for an Orioles team and an Orioles offense that struggled quite heavily with runners in scoring position early on in the season. Recently, they've been doing their thing. They've been getting a lot better. I think in the month of June, they're one of the better teams with runners in scoring position hitting-wise. And obviously, they've had a great month of June, a lot better of a month than any other month this season for the Orioles. So shout out to them. Shout out to this offense for coming through today. It was really cool to see. But going over to the pitching in this game, Trevor Rogers got the start in this game, and he had a solid game. Not anything spectacular, but it was very solid, and a game where you could easily win a game with a start like this from your starting pitcher. He goes 5.1 innings, gives up 3 hits, 3 walks, 2 runs, and has 5 strikeouts, and also gives up a homer. A 91 pitch count across 5 innings. His ERA goes up a little bit to a 2.05, which is still great. A 2.05 ERA through 4 starts this season for Trevor Rogers. He continues to play great. The most amount of runs he's given up in a game this season is 3 in his second start of the season. But, he's been great all season. He gets worked a little bit. Obviously, 91 pitches across 5.1 innings isn't great. But he does keep the runs at a minimum with only 2. The 3 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts in the process as well. Shout out to Trevor Rogers. He continues to play great for this Orioles team. And I'm going to be honest, I think he's a staple of this rotation moving forward, at least for the the time being. I think that you keep Trevor Rogers there. He's been your best performing pitcher of all the pitchers that you have on your roster right now. Him, Dean Kramer, and honestly Charlie Morton have been the 3 best performing pitchers as of recently. Tomoyuki Sagano and Zach Eflin obviously have had some pretty bad starts. Zach Eflin does go on IL today. But Trevor Rogers and Dean Kramer have honestly been like your 2 best performing pitchers so far, recently. So keep Trevor Rogers in this lineup, keep him going, keep him out there, and moving forward, he needs to be a staple of this rotation, which I'm so happy for him. Again, a lot of people were doubting him, including me. A lot of people were doubting that he could do anything. He was struggling in the minor leagues. He was struggling in the majors last season when he was with the Orioles after the trade. But he's really been doing good for him. He's really been doing great, and I'm really happy for him. Seranthony Dominguez in this game doesn't give up a run. Brian Baker doesn't give up a run. Felix Bautista doesn't give up a run. And then Keegan Aiken gives up 3 runs in this game. Technically only 2 runs he gives up, but really it was 3 runs from the 3-run homer that Adolis Garcia hit. But even after that 3-run homer that Adolis Garcia hit, Keegan Aiken still gets the win, 3-0 on the season. Obviously, it was a horrible outing today, but he does get the win, so I guess shout out to him. He made this game a lot scarier. So, and then Andrew Kittredge comes into the game in the 11th inning and closes it out for them. So again, the Orioles get a big 10-6 win over the Rangers. It was an absolutely crazy game. I know I've talked a lot this episode, but there was a lot to talk about with this game. It was up, and then it was down, and then it was up again, and then it was down again, and then it was up again for the Orioles. So an absolute roller coaster of a game, an absolute thriller of a game for the Orioles. And then obviously, as I said earlier, tomorrow it is going to be Brandon Young versus Jacob deGrom, where the Rangers are going to have a big advantage because both bullpens have been used a lot, so both bullpens are very taxed. But one team is Brandon Young in the Orioles, and the other has one of the greatest pitchers of our generation in Jacob deGrom. So obviously, the Rangers fans and the Rangers organization in general is banking on deGrom to go out there and get at least 6 innings and, maybe not have to use a lot of the bullpen. But the Orioles are going to rely on Brandon Young tomorrow to have an absolute masterclass. If it gets bad early for the Orioles, then it's going to be a long game and we're probably going to lose. But if Brandon Young can come through and give us a good at least 5 innings, then this game is very much winnable. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. If the Orioles win this game tomorrow, then they win the series and they can go for the sweep on Wednesday. But if they lose, then it obviously goes to Game 3 on Wednesday, and then winner takes all in the series. But the Orioles start off this series winning this game, winning this game 10-6. Obviously, going up 1-0 in the series. They got to get a series win. They have to go out there and do it. They have to win one of the next 2 games. I'll say it 10 million times over. Last time the Orioles played the Rangers, which was just last week, the Orioles won the first game 6-0, and then they lost the next 2 games in very heartbreaking fashion. They won the first game again today in this series. They got to go out there and win at least one of the next 2. Best case scenario, win both of the next 2 games and get the sweep. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow up on Spotify. Make sure to like the video on YouTube as well. And then also click the link in the bio of whatever platform you're listening on to follow my YouTube and to follow my Instagram. I'm posting updates on Instagram with every episode that gets released. And I'm also posting, updates on Twitter as well, and also live tweeting throughout all the Orioles games if you want to see the highs and lows of my emotions throughout Orioles games, and also posting any sort of Ravens news going on as well. This was an absolute thrilling game for the Orioles, very up and down all game, but the Orioles prevail and win this game and are only 10 games below 500. So again, this next month is going to be crunch time for the Orioles. They got to go out there and go on a big stretch, and they've won 2 in a row now. Hopefully they can keep that up tomorrow. But I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll have an episode up sometime tomorrow night talking about Game 2, where hopefully the Orioles can win. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great rest of y'all's night, great rest of y'all's day, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.